Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again from Film Fanatic headquarters. It is Friday at about 11:33. Cranking out a little bit of extra work here in the Film Fanatic world. So, yeah, I kind of been changing some things up. I've been putting videos on premiere mode. I've been still uploading videos every day, filming every day. But I've been just kind of messing around with the format a little bit. I've been pushing some movie reviews into the premiere mode, where putting them ahead for a few weeks or a few days, kind of spreading things out a little bit. So just it's always cool to kind of mix things up. I'm always trying to mix up things and try new things. Lately, which has been such a super fun adventure. Lately, I've been all of these videos that I'm doing now, and it will be a thing now for quite a while, is I'm reviewing all of the movies that I bought at the amazing sale that Opera House Video had last week. There was a big street sale in town. All the businesses were selling off all of their, kind of backlogged inventory kind of stuff that they had, that they basically don't have a space for. And so I, of course, went to Opera House Video and I just made a killing. And I literally bought an entire stack of movies. Got like about 5 or 6 Blu-rays, which I haven't watched yet, and that's going to eventually be a thing. But I've been watching tons of DVDs. The movies I've gotten have just been super awesome. So very excited. So this is the next installment. I just did a show the other day or actually today, on Multiple Maniacs, which was directed by John Waters. It came out in 1970. I got the Criterion collection of that, and geez, what an amazing piece of trash that is. So I just uploaded that video, so check that out. And I did a video also that is up called The Killing of Satan, which is a movie from 1983, a Filipino exploitation movie that is just beyond the boundaries of normalcy. It's so amazing, and I love that. I love that movie to death. I had never seen it before. I'm just amazed by the shit that I can find. I try to seek out really weird and obscure movies, and I was uh, amazed that they had that there. Never seen it in the store. So I picked that up. I got a good copy of it on DVD. So I did a show on that. That's up on the channel now. So check that out. Amazing movie. So yeah, and so today is the next installment of that. So before I get into that, I'll talk a little bit about some happenings and things going on in the quantum world. It's been cool. Like lately, I just kind of realized the other day, like lately, it's been actually really cool, and it's been really great that we've been really active, and we've been busy with gigs with the band. So I didn't realize quite how things were until just a few weeks ago or a week ago. So it's been great. We've been playing a pretty good amount of gigs, and we've been you know sitting on a bunch of new material. We're actually sitting on another album that's the sequel to In Dreams I Saw, or the second chapter. It's In Dreams I Saw Chapter 2, which is the follow up to the first one. Originally, I was going to release it as a double album, but I wanted to wait. This is a lot of music, and people's habits are very different now, but I wanted to wait, and so we'll see. We'll see what happens with it, but we have another album that's all ready to go. We just have to do a little bit of mixing to it and some of the packaging, but it's all ready to go. And we'll see. I'm in no rush because I can't believe it's been a year already since we put out In Dreams I Saw Chapter 1. Time is such a weird, fucked up thing that way. But it's been a year, so we have another album ready to go. So, if the opportunity presents itself, so far this year it hasn't, as far as doing a release show but, it's fine. It will happen when it needs to happen, and I'm not gonna go crazy around that, because I feel like the first chapter, the first album of this double album, is is still out there. It's still new. It's still fresh and whatnot. So, and we've been sitting on a lot of other material. I try to write a lot for the band, and I've been writing a lot of material, and we've been sitting on a lot of material and rehearsing it. So it's been really fun because the last few gigs that we had, we were able to, especially the last couple, really able to play them out for the first time. And like I've said before, for me, playing live is the ultimate testing ground of material because you can see what works and what doesn't work in the real context. It's one thing to be in your studio rehearsing or writing the material and you reach a point where, okay, I got something here. But it's very easy to lose your perception of the reality of the material. So I feel like when you're actually out in a living, breathing kind of performance environment, like a gig or a concert, that's when it really, the song will really tell you if it's working or not. I learned so much from playing gigs. I always feel like it's always everything, well, in general, but everything for me is always a constant work in progress. I never feel like I've arrived. I never feel like I have. Sure, there are many things that I'm like, you know, for what it's worth, very proud of and I can get behind with confidence. But overall, I feel like everything's in flux and it's always about taking that next step and always onto this next level of development. Whether it's, I'm playing a gig with a band, playing drums with a band, or doing a quantum show, it's always moving forward and trying to learn something new and trying to bring something new and to always hopefully challenge myself within those situations and also the people I'm working with to be challenging to me and for me to challenge them and to always push ourselves. So that's how I always feel. And so we started out this springtime now, but we started playing this winter again, which was fun. We played a gig at the Poor Farm. We had been kind of taking the winters off, but we played a gig at the Poor Farm, which kind of kicked things off a little bit, and then we played at the Gypsy Rose Tavern early on, and then we had a little bit of a break, and then we played again at the Poor Farm recently. Which was a really fun show. That's where we tried a lot of new material, and then we also played a gig at the Myrtle Street Tavern in Rockland. We played we just played a gig. Our last gig, we just played a second time for a second time at the Gypsy Rose. That was fun too because we really pushed it a little bit, or pushed it a lot more as far as trying some new material. So that was a blast to do that. And then we did a radio show recently on my friend Spencer Roulard's show on WRFR as a live performance. We that was a really fun time, and then we did the All Rose Festival, which was 2 nights. That was a big blast. That was super fun. That was some of the most fun we've ever had. I think we've ever some of the most enjoyable gigs that we've ever had on with that band. It was so nice to be able to play through a sound system that is just so good, like just an incredible sound, world class sounding PA system, and the people really cool, and it was just a great experience, and so that was really fun. And the next thing coming up, which will be next weekend, is the summer. Summer is approaching, so next week we will be back on Saturday. We will be playing at the Summer Solstice as Quantum. That's a gig we've done for a long time too. That's a pretty fun thing. They block off the whole main street in Rockland, and then they have bands play all up and down the streets and all those kinds of things. So we've done that for quite a few years. So super excited about that. We'll be doing that, and we'll be playing probably about 4 o'clock. So that will be a week from tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to do a little bit of press for that. I don't do as much press for that gig just because, or promotion, just because there's already a lot of people there, and it's kind of a thing where people are always kind of coming and going, and and those kinds of things. So it's kind of got a built-in audience already. So it's not and it's not like a traditional gig of where we're trying to get people to come to a venue just to see us or to come and just go to the venue itself. This is a little bit of a different thing. So, but I'll be doing some press for that uh, early next week, maybe this weekend. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And we got some more things coming up, and still pushing along as far as getting some new things happening, into the year, and kind of trying to continue this whole crazy thing. I just feel like for me, it's always a thing of development. So I feel like live gigs, they are kind of the ultimate testing ground and kind of workout scenario when it comes to those things. So super fun, and so stay tuned for for some more happenings around those things. So one of the movies that I bought at the sale at Opera House Video, oh God, I just watched it last night, and it was a movie I realized I did see a bunch of times when I was a kid, but I had not seen it in years upon years, and that is Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. This movie came out in 1973, and the most amazing thing about this movie is that it was a made-for-TV movie starring Kim Darby and Jim Hutton. This movie is simply spectacular. This I feel like this movie is as a prime time example of every aspect of why of how I feel a horror movie is can become a masterpiece. This movie is just so damn good, and considering that this is a TV movie is just insane. Like the level of creepiness, the level of creativity, the acting in this film, the direction, the atmosphere, the music, everything. This is top shelf horror right here. This is one of the greatest movies I think ever in the horror genre. It's super uber low budget, and I kind of feel I'm a huge fan of really great films that are essentially TV movies. There's a lot of great movies that were on cable back, and this was a movie that I saw on cable when I was a kid. There's so many great examples of that. My favorite horror exploitation movie of all time, Tourist Trap, starring Chuck Connors. That was a movie I saw and grew up watching on cable. It had a really bad distribution deal when the movie was released, and then it went right to cable because it was considered a PG rated movie, which even now when I think of that, it's completely insane because that movie to me has some things about it that are just so utterly disturbing. Even though there's no gore, there's no really gratuitous sex in it, but it is such an amazing movie, and it's so terrible all at the same time. But that movie was essentially a TV movie, uh, a prime time example of that. And then another movie that I love to death, which I have done a review on also, is Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. One of the greatest horror, low budget TV exploitation movies ever made. One of the creepiest movies ever made. It has so much incredible atmosphere, and that was also a movie that was made for television. I did a show on that last year. I have that on Blu-ray as well. Just amazing. Another really great film that was made for TV that I think is just a masterpiece. Probably I don't know, it might be the best thing that he's ever done. But Duel by Steven Spielberg. Such an amazing horror film, super low budget with Dennis Weaver, made for TV. Essentially a TV horror movie, but it is so damn good. And this movie is one of them. I totally was so enamored with this movie when I watched it. I watched it again last night. and it's been probably 20 years since I've seen this, or longer. I hadn't seen this since I was a kid. And about 5 or 10 minutes into it, I started remembering parts of this movie, and then I was like, "Holy shit, this is that TV movie." And this movie is legendary. It's one of the scariest, I think, one of the creepiest movies. It's got some of the most uh, dense and horrific kind of atmosphere. It's just so amazing. The creature design, the monster design is just so creepy and so imaginative. Kim Darby, the star of this movie, is just so awesome. Um, and the whole premise of this movie, and the house where this movie takes place in, is so horrific. It acts truly as its own character. I did a review on another movie that I just fell in love with recently, and the whole premise of that was basically don't the movie was Don't Open the Door, and that was a really low budget 70s exploitation horror film. Basically, it took place in this really huge, creepy old house, and essentially that house is a character in the movie. And the same that's the very same thing I feel like that makes this movie Don't Be Afraid of the Dark so successful is the house where this takes place in is just so incredible. And it's basically centered on this woman played by Kim Darby, who's the lead in this, who is basically living in this house, and she's having this party, and you kind of she has this sense that something is wrong and that there are these little monsters after her, and she you get the sense that she's really paranoid and she's terrified to be in this house over a period of time, and that you get a sense that maybe she is a victim of like real mental illness, and nobody believes that she is seeing these little creatures run around in this house. But meanwhile, these creatures actually do exist, and they're actually getting her to join them and to essentially murder her and kill the rest of the people in the house. And they're like these little troll-like demons. And oh god, it's just such a damn good movie. And the ending for this film is just miraculous. And it's hard to it's I was blown away by how great this film is. Like I've said many times in previous videos, for me, my biggest selling point for a movie is the atmosphere. You know, the movie could be, for all intents and purposes, not a very good movie, but if it has really good atmosphere, 9 times out of 10, I will still really appreciate the movie, or if not really enjoy it or love it. And this was originally an ABC movie. ABC released this on October 10th of 1973. Just crazy. Um, this was one, like I said, this was one of the titles that I picked up at Opera House Video. I picked it up not realizing what movie it was. It didn't when I looked at it in the shop, it didn't register with me what if I had seen it or not. I just like, oh, this looks really great. I know it's an older film. I didn't know it was. I thought this had come out maybe in the 80s, but I didn't realize it came out in 73, which anybody knows my tastes or has watched any of these videos. My favorite decades of filmmaking, particularly in the low budget horror exploitation world, are the 70s and 80s. That's my prime time. That's most of the movies I watch are from the 70s and 80s and 60s, but mostly 70s and 80s. And so I was like, yes, this is even better. This is my decade. So when I realized that this came out in 73, I was just, wow, like this is even better, even more old school. I'm all about the old school. And again, the other thing that's so interesting about TV movies and TV horror, you know, they have TV now is obviously very different. There isn't you know, really a ratings board anymore. Now, on the good side, a lot of TV shows, a lot of TV movies that come out through all of these streaming companies, the directors and the creative people behind a lot of these films and also new TV series, they're basically given keys to the kingdom, and they can do whatever they want to do. There's no uh, there's no censorship, or there's no ratings board that they have to go to. They can do whatever they want. So typically, the sky's the limit. But I also feel in a lot of ways it hurts or at least from what I've seen, a lot of the TV shows. I think on one hand there's an overabundance. There's too many. I think there's too many TV shows coming out. There's too many TV movies coming out that are these original streaming productions. Just because I think there's a market for it, but when you look behind the scenes, I think a lot of these companies are barely getting by because they're so inundated. So on one hand, it's really great to have all of these creative people being able to do whatever they want to do. But I feel now we're so overly saturated by television shows and original productions for movies. I think there's too many coming out, but you're not going to stop that. That being said, I think there's some amazing work being done and some really great things being done, but it's there's an overabundance. The other thing that I think is a negative around it is, and I think is a plus around when it comes to when there was cable, quote unquote cable, and there was a ratings board where the directors of movies like this had to stay in they had to stay in a certain perimeter. They weren't able to show because of the ratings, and it was the television, in the television format. They weren't, they couldn't get away with showing copious amounts of violence or gore or copious amounts of sex. They had to really work within certain limitations. And I think with particularly these movies that I mentioned that are part of the whole cult, exploitation TV movie horror world that came out, these movies really relied on building suspense and building atmosphere because they couldn't really show gore and gratuitous sex. I love gratuitous sex. I love copious amounts of gore. But for me, it's always got to be the story. The story and the atmosphere has to be there first and foremost. But with all of these limitations that these filmmakers had, by not being able to show those things, they really had to focus on creating the atmosphere, building the suspense, really focusing on the characters. And I feel like with those limitations, they really acted to benefit these films and made them great, made them into gold. And I think on the negative side with television shows, I have seen that before. There was one series I recently watched, and I can't even remember the name of it. But it was a television show that I had heard that was really good, and it basically was centered on this town that was overtaken by these criminals, and there were all of these subsequent wars that happened in this town. Kind of a Wild West scenario. Something I think it was called Banshees. I can't remember the name of it, but I had heard it was a very good show. So we started watching it, and I got through the first season, and then I was like, this show is crap. I have no desire to watch any more of this. I got enough. I thought some of the first season was really, really good, but then after a while, it was just the same old stuff over and over again. And then by the end of it, I was just like totally exhausted, and I have no desire to watch any more of it. And there's like 3 seasons of it. And the thing that happened with that show is that I felt like the story was good in the beginning, the character developments were really good in the beginning, but then it just kind of falls by the wayside. And there's in each episode of this one particular show, there is so much violence and there's so much like dirty sex in every scene that after about a couple hours of seeing it over and over again, it loses its impact. It's not really jarring anymore, and it's just like the same old shit, same old scenario over and over and over again. And I started to feel like, well, they're just doing this because they're overcompensating because the story just isn't strong enough to carry this whole season. So they're going to just put in the most, you know, graphic sex and the most graphic violence that they can put in this series to basically cover their ass because the actual story is not strong enough. And I just felt like that's to me that's an example of where given giving filmmakers the keys to the kingdom with no limitations, uh, that's an example of where it goes to the other extreme and it's not successful. Because at the end of the day, like I said, I love my favorite genre in the world is the slasher film. You know, where there's copious amounts of sleaze, copious amounts of violence, all kinds of blood and gore, all kinds of sex, but it's got to be about the story first, you know, and it's got to be about the atmosphere. And when you see these things of violence or you see these things of sex or when something is really sleazy, it has that impact on you because it's it pushes your buttons. There's not an overabundance of it. You know, it's I think in even in, like, if you use an example for like even the most low budget, you know, slasher movie, a movie say like Mad Men, which is one of my favorite slasher movies, super low budget, pretty underground movie. But even in that, even for that as an example, the story is great, the atmosphere is great. You know, that's the starting point, and so everything else is secondary. So there, that to me is just testimony as to why this movie is so damn good. Like this is like, you know, I feel like if you're a filmmaker who wants to make good horror movies and like wants to like say find reference points in films that, you know, for films that are you feel act as like a blueprint for like how to just make an overall really good horror film. I think this is it. Like this is it because it's totally an exercise on how to build suspense, how to build some really great characters, and how to just really create or how to really be successful in the art of world building and create that atmosphere as hopefully the core of what your story will be. This is it. Like this is it. Just an amazing movie. So yeah, I can't recommend this enough. Totally blown away by this. The quality of this is on DVD. The quality of this film is actually really great. The transfer of this is awesome. Super excited. There's no special features on here unfortunately, but I started checking it out a little bit last night. But there's a commentary track on here with a bunch of different people who work in the horror industry. One of the one of the guys that's on the commentary is the founder of Fangoria magazine. You know, one of the most popular horror magazine in the world. But I checked out a little bit of the commentary, and it's really interesting actually. They really they take a deep dive into like the origins of this movie and how it came about, and just the fact that this is a TV movie and how just so damn creepy it is. But just yeah, such a damn good movie. If I see this in my travels on Blu-ray, like a special edition, I will definitely snag it up. But I am super excited I bought this. I got this for like $3 at Opera House Video. But oh my god, horror masterpiece. And I definitely feel that this fits in the world of the low budget B movie kind of exploitation world. But just amazing. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, starring Kim Darby and Jim Hutton from the year that was known as 1973. They truly, and I've said it many, many times, I love a lot of new movies that come out and I try to stay up on them. You know, like the best one I've seen in recent time, and I did a show on, was Infinity Pool. amazing movie. But I have to say, even with that being said, they this movie here, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark from 1973, they truly do not make movies like this anymore. They don't. They just don't. Masterpiece. So thanks again. If you like this channel, please subscribe and keep the comments coming, and we will see you next time. Peace.